A nearly full moon provides just enough light for me to see the fetlock of the horse I try to chain, but not much else. No matter how patient I am, the creature refuses to remain still. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. Just when I think I've got a grasp on its leg, it shakes me loose and snorts, making my task even more difficult. Caleb, who lies in the mud of the horsepen not less than a fathom from my crouched position, whispers, "Let me try, lad." My eyes dart through at least a dozen pairs of long, constantly shifting horse legs toward the front of the fence where two Calican soldiers stand watch, lit only by a pair of lanterns. Feeling confident enough that I won't be seen, I lie back down in the mud and do my best impression of a snake, slithering past Caleb as he tries to clip the horses in where I could not. After a moment, I hear the locking mechanism of the chain snap shut with an audible click, followed by a rather annoyed snort from the horse. How many is that now? 50? 60? I've lost count. Levi was adamant about keeping 24 horses for us to escape with, but the logistics of locking in the rest have proved challenging. The Calicans know the value of their horses and like to keep them close to the war camp for observation. Apparently, that also means bunching them together in a pen so tight that there is barely enough room for them to move. If one of these horses even so much as shifts the wrong way, I'll be tread upon. Such is the price of our chance at freedom. My chance to get back to Sarah, to Emily. Luckily, the buzz about a fight between the Reavers spread like a powder fire through the war camp. Hoods was proved wrong. The two that almost gutted me were found to be members of the Black Hand Guard, some type of Reaver order. However, since they murdered Hoods and a few of his soldiers in the ensuing shuffle, they're being detained in a makeshift prison guarded by whatever Reavers the army has to spare. Levi's argument that this is the best time to escape was extremely convincing to the rest of Group 13. Hoods' death created a cascade of problems for the management of conscripts, and there has been no clear word on who will be organizing the conscript groups in his wake. None of the top brass realized how much they relied on the man for ensuring the conscript groups functioned properly. With things in such a state of disarray, the generals didn't even bother to send anyone to check any of the conscript groups at lights out. Who knows if any one of them even bothered locking into their chain lines? Caleb begins to covet back to his assigned position and gestures for me to continue past him. As I comply, he whispers harshly, "This manacle is shot. I'll try to use the chain, but it'll take a moment. You check on Moses up ahead." Our only way of communicating with each other over longer distances is through subtle tugs on the chain. 2 tugs indicate that a horse is locked in. 1 tug means the opposite, and that more slack is needed. Mud cakes my chest and chin as I make my way up the line, threading the needle between horses. I imagine this is how ants feel beneath the feet of humankind. There's a certain helplessness to it and an intense need to focus on my task. My body feels heavier, and the corrosively scented combination of mud and horse droppings I've accumulated adds to this weight. There is no avoiding the scent of the soiled ground, leaving me with a constant need to cough and gag. It's funny how I've become so desensitized to the stench of death, yet feel that crawling in mud and shit seems a bridge too far. When I see the crouched outline of Moses up ahead, I sharply tug on the chain twice to let him know that I'm finished with the horse behind. His large hands still fumble with the ankle bracelet attached to the chain as he struggles to lock in his horse, and I can feel his disdain for the task as he tugs back, a little too violently, signaling he's not ready to continue yet. The big man never ceases to surprise me. He's proven to be quite fond of animals. And once he realized that this plan involves potentially sacrificing most of these poor creatures, he argued passionately against it. Ultimately, Levi laid it out for him. Our freedom is worth the sacrifice. Still, Moses complained the entire way to the pen. And he's right. I know what we're doing here is wrong, but if we are to escape from the Calicans, we will need to get our hands dirty. It's an easier choice for me. I have a wife and daughter to find. Does Moses? I don't know and make a mental note to ask him later, after we've escaped. After we've escaped. Does that mean I think there's a chance? I shake my head, bringing myself back to the moment. Moses, do you need help? I whisper, taking care that the guards don't hear. If they were any good at their jobs, we would already be caught. Such is the risk of complacency. The guards never expect to be needed on duty, so they aren't actually looking for any threats. No. The largest man in Group 13 replies as he finally manages to snap the ankle-locking mechanism shut around the horse's leg. But something about the way it catches angers the horse, and it kicks backward, slamming its hoof into Moses' abdomen. The blow is strong enough to launch him backward, and he hits his head on the ribs of another horse on his way down to the muck. The result is an avalanche of movement and sound as horses neigh and rock back and forth in response. I expect Moses to scream from the pain, but to my surprise, he doesn't make a sound. As his moonlit outline continues to roll on the ground, I realize that he's had the breath taken from him. Crouching down, I carefully wade between the agitated beasts, giving them as wide of a berth as possible because of the too small pen. I make my way to the thrashing giant and grab his shoulder. The air is coming back into him now, as evidenced by his slowly building groans. I put my hand over his mouth. I know it hurts, but keep it in. Be strong. One sound from you and we're all dead. I whisper into his ear. I expect to see fury in his eyes, but there's only pain. I glance over to where the guards are stationed to see if they've noticed the disturbance. Quiet, nags! You lot were fed today. The leftmost one hollers. It's too dark to tell if he's looking in the pen, but I get the impression he isn't. Half a fathom behind Moses' head, an unchained horse shuffles. Images of its hoof landing on Moses' head touch my mind, but I manage to prop the man up just as a hoof comes down. What happened to him? A whisper from behind nearly scares me to death. Levi crawls up to us. Horse kicked him. I think it might have broken his ribs. Levi reaches over and pushes on Moses' rib cage, but to my surprise, Moses doesn't wince at all. It isn't until Levi pushes on his stomach that he lets loose a hissing sound. I'll tell Warwick to look at him on the road. Everyone else has finished clipping their horses in. How many do you have left? I think we're somewhere between 50 to 60. I've lost count. That should be enough. It'll be all right if we leave a few strays. We're meeting over there. I've told everyone else. You two are the last. Levi points to the farthest area of the horse pen from the guards, and then starts crawling back. I look to Moses, who seems frozen in a slumped position. You sure you still don't want my help? I say. His head slowly cranks up, and he scowls at me. That's that, I suppose. By the time we make it to the area Levi pointed to, I see that some of the men from Group 13 have made a hole in the fence by removing a few of the planks. This provides a path of escape for the horses. I know this plan ends in a horrifying stampede that takes out the Calican cavalry and allows us a fighting chance at an escape. Whether the night ends calmly or violently, one question rolls around in my mind. How does Levi intend to hold back the few dozen beasts for us? Part of me feels much like Moses does, disgusted with myself that I could cause these creatures such suffering in the name of my own escape. But what blame does the Calican army bear for enslaving us in the first place? And we are people, not beasts. I resolve to think of these horses as tools of war, nothing more. I lock eyes with a horse on the far edge of the pen. We're both conscripts, aren't we? It's not the shackles we placed on its fetlock that give it this status, but rather the singular fact that the horse's life belongs to that of another. That's what a conscript is, isn't it? A slave. Disappointed with myself, I look over my shoulder. The lanterns of the guards have become markedly less visible with the distance, but are visible enough to indicate they're still there. Why haven't they noticed the sounds? When we first snuck into the pen, there was a certain silence to the horses. Not complete, of course, but the sounds were the natural backdrop of a war camp at night. But now the horses are agitated, and their occasional snorts or tail swishes have given way to grunting and bucking against the clinking manacles of the chain line. It's faint, but if you stay here long enough, that subtle jingle will become obvious. These guards will realize this sound eventually. I pass through the fence hole and find the rest of the men. "Is everyone clear on what their function is supposed to be after this?" says Levi, loudly enough for only the group to hear. When everyone assents, he continues. "Ollie, do you have the weapons?" Moonlight illuminates the barrels of 2 identical revolvers that Ollie hands to Levi. It's shocking to see a conscript with a firearm, and the men grin wildly upon seeing it. Apparently, he managed to swipe the revolvers from a sleeping Calican captain. Of course, if they were found in his possession, he would be executed, so he hid them in the latrines. But the sight of the guns doesn't excite me. It makes me nervous. There was a time where even touching such a disgustingly violent tool would have been beneath me. If Levi ever felt the same, he gives no indication. "Emily, would you even recognize me now?" Levi hands the other revolver to his right-hand man. "Walter, you take Ollie and Simeon. Wait for my signal. You know what to do then." He turns to a darkened figure to his left. "Work. Tell them to open the gate. I want you here overseeing it and making sure there are no snags." Finally, his gaze is directed at me. I feel the weight of it, like an older brother that I am desperate to please. "Nolan, Moses, you're with me." He has Walter quietly sneak around to the left side of the pen while we make our way to the right side, creating a pincer where the horses are caught in the middle. "Levi, how are we going to get the 12 horses you wanted?" I'm close enough to him to see a grin spread across his face. "Why do you think I brought you two?" How are we supposed to catch unsaddled horses, I want to ask, but before I can, a sudden thunder erupts to the north of us. A beat of silence passes. Then come 2 more muffled explosions from the same direction. What is that? I cannot get the question out before I am drowned out by the explosive Calican war drums. Are they on to us? How? A look to Levi tells me he's just as confused by the turn of events. His wide, blue eyes dart this way and that. The horses, frightened by the abrupt eruption of sound, take their cue and stir more frantically in the pen. Chained as they are, they cannot help but bump into one another and tug at the legs of the other beasts. In moments, this jostling has turned into a thrashing panic, causing the pen that holds them to break apart. They scatter like 100 babies on the back of a spider that's been stepped on. Except they can't. We've chained them. As the animals' legs break, their screams cut through the night, chilling me to the core. Moses cries out, like he is shackled to the animals and is feeling their pain. Those lucky few beasts that we didn't manage to shackle get free and make a run for the gap in the fence. Their bolt turns into an outright gallop, and soon they are trampling through the war camp tents and crushing Calican soldiers as they sleep. Soon the agonized cries of men join the otherworldly yowl of horses. The cacophony seems to wrap itself around my throat and reverberate in my chest cavity. The combined wails of animal and man tug at the very soul. It is that rare type of horrifying sound that bellies pure, dispassionate suffering. Suffering for which you are responsible. I berate myself. Movement to our left brings me back into my body. If the 2 guards weren't alerted to our presence before, they are now as they carry lanterns around the side of the paddock. "Over here, we've been..." 2 pops from a weapon can barely be heard over the horses, and both men are felled before my eyes. Levi shows no emotion as he holsters the revolver in his belt. Cool and dispassionate, he kills as easily as swatting flies off his arm. "Levi, what's happening?" Walter shouts as he makes his way to us with Ollie jogging close behind. Levi simply shakes his head, still trying to process the situation. "There, to the north!" Ollie yells. Cannon fire rains down upon the outside trenches, but not from the expected source. Not from the city. "Senecan reinforcements!" just like the Calicans feared. Levi has a wild look in his eyes, somewhere between terror and a childlike excitement. Seneca has come to break the siege! As the men of Group 13 congregate around our leader, a deep feeling of unease settles upon me. We are surrounded, not just by the Calican army, but now by the Senecans. The plan is done. There's nowhere to run, and we've just crippled the Calican cavalry, so they have no chance of even fighting back. All that work, all that hope dissolves into nothing. What do we do now? I shout at Levi. He begins laughing like a madman, with the distant flashes of artillery lighting up the sky behind him. The scene is menacing. Levi turns to the group and flashes the widest grin I've ever seen him wear. Well, boys, time to improvise.